All right, we're solving equations with the quadratic formula today. This is a quadratic equation. Okay, we know it's quadratic because we got an x squared term. Anytime you have an x squared term, that's quadratic, unless you've got a term that's got a higher exponent. But this is quadratic. All right, this is in descending order. We got our x squared, then we have our x term, and then we have a constant term that has no variable. We want these in descending order when we set them up. And then when we do, this coefficient in front of the x squared is my a. This coefficient in front of the x term is my b. And then this constant coefficient is my c. So we have our a, our b, and our c. And it must be in descending order to do this. Okay, when you have an equation like that, you can't solve it just like a linear equation. You have to use factoring or completing the square or the square root property or the quadratic formula, which is right here. This is the quadratic formula. When you have your quadratic equation in descending order, this is the a, that's the b, and this is the c number. And you put the numbers in this quadratic formula right here. Okay? Now, there is a song I like to sing with this. It's Pop Goes the Weasel. I don't know if I spelled that right. Weasel. All right. But it goes like this. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's the quadratic formula, and that's how you can remember it with this song, Pop Goes the Weasel song. Okay? Well, let's try a couple of these. First ones are, not too bad, pretty simple. But we have to look at it. It's got to be in descending order, like this one is right here. We got our x squared term, then our x term, then our constant term, and it must equal 0. This one does. So right here's my a. My a equals 1. Right there's my b right there, negative 4. And here's my c right there, negative 21. Okay, and I'm going to put those in the quadratic formula. So here it is. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And if you notice, each place where there's one of these letters, a, b, or c, I put these blank parentheses, and now I'm going to stick those numbers in. All right, so my a is 1. A goes right here and right there. All right, b in this equation is negative 4. Negative 4 goes here. Negative 4 goes there. And then c, negative 21, goes in this one spot right there. Okay? So I put my numbers in. Now, after I put these numbers in, there's 3 things that we do at one time. Okay? Right there, there's one thing. I've got to I always have a negative in front of that, so this negative makes that negative 4 a positive 4. I've got 2 times 1, which is 2, and I got this under the radical. There's 3 things I do at once. All right, so that means I'm going to have x equals 2 negatives makes it positive 4. Down here on the bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. All right, and then in my radical, I just punch this in the calculator. So let's see here, here's a calculator. All right, so I'm just going to go negative 4 in parentheses, squared, minus 4, and then I got a 1 in parentheses, and I got a negative 21 in parentheses. You just type it just like that. Okay, but you do not hit the radical. Okay, so I get 100. Okay, now, hopefully this is a perfect square, which it is in this problem. The square root of 100 is 10. But you simplify that radical. Well, when I do that over here, this comes over like this. X equals 4, I didn't put my minus, plus or minus 10. The square root of 100 is 10. Divide by 2. Okay, and then since there's no radicals now, I can calculate my 2 answers. So I do 4 plus 10, which is 14, divide by 2 is 7. X equals 7 is one answer. All right, then I got to do the minus. 4 minus 10 is negative 6. Negative 6 divided by 2 would be negative 3. And there's my 2 solutions for this. Most times you'll have 2 solutions. Sometimes you'll have just 1 solution, and then sometimes you might have some imaginary solutions. Okay, we'll have one of those in a minute. But right here, it's 4 plus or minus this square root of 100, which is 10, divided by 2. So 4 plus 10 is 14, divided by 2 is 7. 4 minus 10 is -6. -6 divided by 2 is -3. And these are my two answers. Now, you can plug those in to check them. I'm going to do that here. I'm going to put 7 in. So 7 squared minus 4 times 7 minus 21 is 0, like it's supposed to be. All right. Let's do the other one. All right, now I got -3, so I'm going to have to put that in parentheses. Make sure you do that. -3 squared minus 4, and then -3 in parentheses, and then minus 21. Oop. Yeah, that's right, 0. Comes out to be 0. I thought I made a mistake on typing it. So they both check out right. All right, let's go to this next one here. We'll do the same thing with it now. So here's my A, 2. There's my B right there, -1. There's no number, so it's a -1. And my C right there, -6. All right, let's solve this. And it has to equal 0, which it does. It's descending order. You have to make sure it does those two things. So it's x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, my A is 2, so 2 goes here and here. B is -1. -1 goes there, and then C is -6. It goes way over there. So you put the numbers in where they go. Okay, and then like I just said a minute ago, there's 3 things. 1, 2, 3 things you do at one time here. All right, so in doing those, a negative of a negative makes a +1, plus or minus. Down here, 2 times 2 is 4. And then in my radical, see if I can do this in my head. That's going to be 49. Okay. All right, with the square root of 49, we simplify it, which is 7. All right, so x equals 1 plus or minus 7 divided by 4. Okay. All right, so 1 plus 7 is 8. And 8 divided by 4 is 2. There's one answer. 1 minus 7 is -6. -6 divided by 4 is -3/2. It's a fraction, so we just leave it like that. We don't like to really change them to decimals much unless it's like, just like some other specific reason. Okay, we're going to the next one. We're not going to worry about checking them right now. Okay, now here there's quadratic because it's x squared, but look, it does not equal 0. It equals 11x. So I need to fix that. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 11x on both sides to make this equal 0. And now put them in descending order. So I've got 6x squared minus 11x, and I'm thinking that's supposed to be a 3 right there. I think I just wrote this down incorrectly. Okay, I don't think it was supposed to have an x on it. All right, so here's my A, 6. There's my B, -11. Here's my C, 3. So let's put them in the quadratic formula. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, my A is 6, so 6 goes here and here. My B is -11, looking at there and that there. And my C is a 3, which goes way over here. Okay, and then just like I said previously, 1, 2, 3 things to do at one time here. All right, so x equals 2 negatives makes a +11. 2 times 6 is 12 down here. And then my radical. All right, I'm going to have 121 minus 72, right? Is that 49 again? I better punch it in and make sure. So I've got -11 squared minus 4 times 6 times 3. Yep, 49 again. And that's a perfect square. So that means I've got this. I've got x equals 11 plus or minus the square root of 49 is 7 divided by 12. Okay? Which means I got 11 plus 7, which is 18 divided by 12. And that simplifies 3/2. There's one answer. Then I have 11 minus 7, which is 4. 4 divided by 12 is 1/3. And there's my two answers right there. Okay. All right, number 4. All right, this is in descending order. It equals 0, so we're ready to go. So A is 1, B is -9, C is 5. And you don't have to write those down. I'm just writing them down to illustrate what we have here. But we'll do the quadratic formula. X equals -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, there you go. Now my a is 1, so 1 goes here and here. B is -9, so we got a -9 there and a -9 there. And then C is 5, and it's all the way over here at the end. Okay? And then every time, there's 3 things to do at once here. All right, so right here, 2 negatives makes a positive again, 9. 2 times 1 is 2 down here. Now, sometimes this is positive here, which makes that a negative for down here. So you got to do that every time, though. Now, in my radical, I'm going to have 81 minus 20, which is 61. Okay? Now, this time, the square root of 61 is not a perfect square, so I try to break it down. All right, radical 61. 61, I don't think anything goes into it. So we're done. The radical won't simplify, so we just leave it like that. That's my answer. Okay? The radical will not simplify. So if it doesn't simplify, you just leave it like that. Okay? All right, number 5 here. It's in descending order. It equals 0, so we're good to go. Let's go ahead and solve it. So I'm not going to write them out this time. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, my a is 1 right there. There's my a right here and here. My b right there, -14, -14, -14. And there's my C, 58. Okay? And then every time, man, once you put those numbers in, you got 3 things to do at one time. 3 things to do. So that means you got x equals 2 negatives makes a positive 14. 2 times 1 down here is 2. Then I got plus or minus in my radical here. We'll have 196 minus 232, I think. I better punch this in. -14 squared minus 4 times 1 times 58. -36, that's right. Okay, now here comes the issue. We got a square root of a negative, which means that's going to send out an I. We're going to have imaginary here. And so then I have the square root of 36. Well, the square root of 36 is 6. So this is the same thing as x equals 14 plus or minus the square root of 36 is 6, so it'd be 6i divided by 2. Okay? Now, when you have imaginaries like this right here, when you have an imaginary like that, you have to split it up. Because see, this is real, that's imaginary. So you split them up. So when you split them up, it looks like this. I got 14 over 2, plus or minus. Then I have 6 over 2 with the I. Okay, so I got 14 over 2 right there, plus or minus. Then I got 6 over 2 with the I. And then I simplify each one of those. Well, 14 over 2 is 7. 6 over 2 is 3, so it'll be 3i, and then there you go. There's my answer simplified. Okay. All right. Now what about this one then? All right. X equals -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, now I didn't point this out, but it's in descending order and it equals 0. It has to equal 0 before you start doing this. So I didn't say that, but took it for granted here. But my a is 1 right there, so 1 goes here and here. B is also 1, so that goes there and there. And then C is 2, right there's my 2. Okay? Now, if you put those numbers in, 1, 2, 3 things every time. So that means I'm going to have x equals, all right, look here. Now, this is a -1 right there now. Down here, 2 times 1 would be a 2. And then up here on my radical, all right, I got 1 minus 8, which is -7, I think. Right? 1 minus 8 is -7. Okay, I've got a negative, which is going to send out an I. Okay, which is imaginary. Okay, now my radical of 7, the square root of 7, I can't do anything with it. So I leave it. All right, so here's the deal. Since I've got imaginary, since it's negative in there, I got to split it up. So that means I'm going to have negative 1 over 2 plus or minus radical 7 over 2 and an I out there. And then I simplify them. Well, that won't simplify, and this won't simplify. So there you go. Okay. All right, go to this one, number 7. All right, it's in descending order and equals 0, so we're good to go. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay. Now my a right there is 3. See there? There's my a. 3 goes here and there. There's my b right there, positive 12. 12 and a 12. And here's my c, the 7. It's way over here. Okay. That means I've got these 3 things to do. So that's a negative 12 right there. So we got a negative 12. 2 times 3 is 6. I always do them 2 first. I don't know why, but I guess because this radical, I always have to do more computations on it, and I do it last. So that's going to be 144 minus 84, which is 60, I believe. Let me punch it in, make sure. 12 squared minus 4 times 3 times 7. 60 was right. Okay. Now, I need to see if this simplifies this radical. So after you get these numbers right here, if you always have to try to simplify your radical. Well, this is not a perfect square, and it's not negative, so an I is not coming out. So I'm going to have to break it down. So 60 divided by 2 is 30. 30 divided by 2 is 15. 15 is 3 times 5. And there you go. These circled ones are the primes. And look, see, there's a pair. If you have a pair, that'll pull that number out of the radical. So a 2 comes out of the radical. But these guys are stuck in the radical because they don't have partners to get out. So that means I got 3 times 5, which is 15. So this is 2 radical 15 is what this simplifies to. Okay, which means I write it like this then. Okay, x equals negative 12 plus or minus 2 radical 15 divided by 6. Okay, so my 2 radical 15 is right there. Okay, because that's what radical 60 simplifies to. Okay, and then once I do this right here, I'm done. Once I simplify that radical, I'm done unless I'm done unless these 3 numbers right here, if those 3 numbers divide down, I divide them down. Well, they all divide. See that? They all divide by 2. So I divide all those numbers down, which means I'm going to have this. X equals, I'm going to divide all these by 2. So negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Plus or minus 2 divided by 2 would be 1. So it'd just be 1 radical 15. And then 6 divided by 2 would be 3. And there you go. Now I'm done. Okay, so right here, once I get this radical simplified, I'm done unless these 3 numbers divide down. Now, I don't ever divide the radical down. When I'm dividing right here, I don't ever do that. I don't touch that number. Okay, so that'd be my answer right there. Okay, let's move on to number 8. We got 8 and 9, and that's all we're going to do today. Now, this is quadratic, but look, it does not equal 0. So I'm going to have to add 2 to both sides. So this would make it equal 0. So that means in descending order, I got 4x squared plus 10x plus 2 equals 0. And there you go. That's quadratic form. Now, wait a minute now. Look at this. Now, you need to look for this every time. I didn't mention none of it earlier because this is the first one like this. But all these numbers divide. See there, 4, 10, and 2, they all divide by 2. And you'll be doing yourself a service if you go ahead and divide them down. So if I divide all these by 2, all right, 4 divided by 2 would be 2x squared. 10 divided by 2 would be 5x. 2 divided by 2 would be 1. And then 0 divided by 2 is still 0. All right, and there you go. We use this equation now, which is more simplified. So you want to do that if you can. So just look at your numbers and see if there's something that divides them. All right, so x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, my a is 2, so 2 goes here and here. B is 5, got us a 5 there, got us a 5 there, and C is 1. Okay, so you just throw your numbers in, and then every time you got 1, 2, 3 things to do. Okay, so x equals, I got a negative 5 right there. 2 times 2 is 4 down here. And then in my radical, I got 25 minus 8, which is 17. Okay, and then I simplify my radical. Well, radical 17 does not simplify, so we're done. If your radical does not simplify, you're done. Oh, I need to scoot it up a little bit. So I got radical 17, it does not simplify, so I just leave it like that. Okay, now one more, and we're finished up here. This is number 9, and notice I got 5x squared equals this. I don't have equals 0, so I'm going to have to add 8x on both sides to get rid of this. I'm going to have to add a 2 to both sides to get rid of this, and now it equals 0. This goes away. Now what do I have over here? We got to put it in descending order, which will just be 5x squared plus 8x plus 2 equals 0. And there you go, there's my quadratic equation. It doesn't divide down like the previous problem did. Nothing divides all those, so there you go. So my A is 5, my B is 8, and then my C is 2 again there. All right, so x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, there's my quadratic formula. Now my a this time is 5. 5 goes here and here. All right, my b is 8. 8 goes here and here. And then c is this 2, and it's all the way over here at the end. Okay, and then if you put those numbers in, you know it. 1, 2, 3 things to do. So that means I got x equals, that's going to be a negative 8 right there. I got a 2 times 5, it's a 10 down here. And then in my radical, I got 64 minus 200. I'm sorry, I did 50. Do it again. 4 times 5 is 40. So 64 minus 40 is 24. Let me double check that with the calculator. I confused myself, I think. So 8 squared minus 4. You just do this calculator here every time. If you want to, just type it just like it looks. 24 is right. Okay, so there's my answer. And like I said, I'm done unless that radical simplifies. So let's bring it over here. 24 is 2 times 12, circle the 2. 12 is 2 times 6, circle the 2. 6 is 2 times 3. And so there's how 24 breaks down, which look there, I got a pair of 2's. That's going to send a 2 out of the radical. But this 2 does not have a partner, so he's stuck in a radical. And as well as this 3, he doesn't have a partner either, so he's stuck in a radical. So that means I got a 2 coming out, and then 2 times 3 is a 6 stuck. So this is 2 radicals 6. So that means I got this. X equals negative 8 plus or minus 2 radical 6 divided by 10. So negative 8 plus or minus 2 radical 6 divided by 10. Okay? Now, I'm done, like I told you a while ago, unless these 3 numbers divide. Do those 3 numbers divide? Yes, they all divide by 2. So it means x equals negative 8 divided by 2, negative 4. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So it's just radical 6. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And there you go. There's my answer. Okay. So that's solving equations with the quadratic formula. If you need any help, just let me know, okay? Have a good rest of the day.